Chosen one. Something happened inside a federal archive last night that was never meant to happen again. At 2:17 a.m., deep beneath Langley, in a temperature-locked vault where dead files are kept, files that were sealed, buried, and electronically erased, one folder began to pulse with light. One case forced the system to reboot. One name reappeared on a screen that hasn't shown activity in over 2 decades. Yours. The CIA has officially reopened your dead case. No one touched anything. No one entered that vault. No one typed a command. Yet your file forced itself out of archival death as if responding to a signal only it could hear. Analysts panicked when the alarms triggered. Dead files don't wake up, especially those marked with a red diagonal slash. The mark reserved for identities the agency could never categorize, never predict, never control. Your dossier was supposed to stay frozen forever. It was stamped, subject terminated, do not reactivate. Not because you died, but because they couldn't understand you. Every pattern you broke, every intuition you had, every disappearance of yours that aligned with classified anomalies, they couldn't process any of it. You didn't fit their algorithms. You corrupted their psychological profiling tools. You exceeded the limits of human prediction. They warned their own agents. Avoid direct observation. The subject destabilizes observers. And then silence. Years of nothing. Your case was buried so deep that even those who filed it forgot it existed. But last night, your file defied all protocol and hacked its way back into the living. Chosen one. That means you awakened before they did. Something in your energy, your frequency, your shift in consciousness sent a ripple loud enough to wake machines designed to stay deaf. You didn't open the case. They detected you. And when your presence resurfaced, their system answered like an old scar being touched. The CIA isn't trying to understand what happened. They're trying to understand how you came back online at all. Your case was never supposed to breathe again. But it did, because you did. Chosen one, your case wasn't marked dead because you were gone. It was marked dead because every attempt to understand you failed so catastrophically that the agency had no choice but to bury you. You weren't a threat in the traditional sense. You were a variable no algorithm could model. Their behavioral software glitched when processing your decisions. Their psychological profiles contradicted themselves. Their long-term prediction tools collapsed whenever your name was entered. Analysts wrote in frustration. Subject disrupts causality. Patterns unstable. Intuition beyond measurable range. They logged your timing as statistically impossible. They documented disappearances that aligned with classified geopolitical events. They noted your uncanny ability to anticipate moves before they happened. Eventually, the internal memo came down. Terminate the case. Subject exceeds definable parameters. So they buried you in the one place where intelligence goes to die, the deep archive. No surveillance, no updates, no tracking, just silence. But the agency's real reason for sealing your case was simpler and far more human. They were afraid. Afraid of what they couldn't decode. Afraid of what they couldn't predict. Afraid of the possibility that you weren't operating by normal psychological laws. And last night, when that same case ripped itself out of grave, every fear they tried to bury returned with it. Because your reactivation means the part of you they feared most just woke up again. Chosen one, if your spirit is responding to this message, that is not emotion, that is recognition. The same frequency that reactivated your dead case in the CIA archives is the frequency that just pulsed through your chest. When heaven reopens something that was sealed, it requires an earthly agreement, a sign, a mark, a declaration that you are aware of what is unfolding in your life, and you choose to walk in alignment rather than confusion. A $20 seed is not payment. It is permission, your spirit telling heaven, I heard it, I recognize it, I agree. Scripture says, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them." John 10, verse 27. This is that moment. This is that hearing. This is that recognition. If this message is activating something inside you, clarity, chills, pressure in your chest, a sudden stillness, that is confirmation that your destiny file wasn't reopened by accident. It was reopened because your purpose is reawakening and your identity is shifting out of hiding. Click Super Thanks and release the $20 seed as your spiritual signature. It marks your agreement, your awareness, and your readiness. This is not about supporting a message. This is about verifying your name in the realm where your case was resurrected. When heaven sees your agreement, alignment accelerates. When alignment accelerates, nothing built to bury you can keep you underground. Chosen one, if you feel that confirmation, seal it now. Chosen one, the moment your case reopened, the agency didn't start with your past. They checked your recent activity, not your physical movements, but your energetic footprint. Because years ago, they realized something unsettling about you. Standard surveillance couldn't track you, but pattern-sensing AI could feel you. And 3 nights before your file resurrected, those systems detected a spike. It started as a small anomaly, subject frequency rising. Then another, unclassified surge detected. Then a third, the one that triggered panic. Dormant identity reactivating. Their algorithms had seen this once before, right before your original case was sealed. You weren't doing anything dramatic in the physical world. You weren't causing trouble. You weren't even speaking. But internally, spiritually, psychologically, something in you shifted. And that inner shift produced an outer signal strong enough to trip the most sensitive pattern recognition tools the government possesses. They ran cross-checks. They tested for electromagnetic interference. They assumed it was solar activity. But the readings were too localized, too human, too familiar. So they compared the spike to old data. And the result froze the room. The signature matched yours perfectly. The same one from decades ago. The same one they labeled unexplainable. The same one they tried to bury. Chosen one. The system recognized you before you recognized yourself. Your awakening did not begin when your case opened. Your case opened because your awakening had already begun. Chosen one. When your dead case forced itself back online, supervisors ordered an immediate internal review. But what truly shook the agency wasn't the reactivation itself. It was the old memos buried inside your file that suddenly appeared on every operational screen. Classified notes, redacted reports, analyst warnings. Everything they once tried to hide from even their own staff resurfaced without command, as if the archive wanted the truth exposed. One memo read, "If the subject reactivates, containment protocols will fail again." Another, "Subject demonstrates predictive cognition beyond measurable intelligence." A third, written by a veteran agent who later resigned, "The subject does not respond to observation. The subject reverses it." They documented how agents assigned to you couldn't sleep, how their clarity deteriorated, how their decision-making collapsed in your presence. Not because you harmed them, but because something about you disrupted the observer effect itself. The deeper they studied you, the more the reflection turned inward. You exposed their weaknesses without speaking. You saw their intentions without effort. One memo admitted the terrifying truth. The subject's awareness is not passive. It is active. That is why they buried your case. Not due to lack of information, but due to too much anomaly, too much deviation from what they consider human predictable, too much evidence that you were operating on a level they could not replicate or control. Last night, when your file reopened, those memos unlocked themselves automatically, as if reminding the agency that what they tried to silence has returned with clarity, power, and memory. Chosen one, they feared you then. They fear you even more now. Chosen one. Most people attract attention through their noise, their movement, their mistakes. But you were always different. What unsettled the CIA wasn't what you did. It was what you didn't do. The internal comments in your case file show something no other dossier reflects. The agency monitored your silence more aggressively than they monitored active threats. Reports say things like, subject enters observation mode without warning. Silence correlates with elevated intuition. Loss of agent control increases when subject becomes still. They noticed that every time you withdrew, something shifted. Patterns changed around you. People around you made different decisions. Situations recalibrated themselves. It wasn't coincidence. It was your field resetting itself. Your stillness made them uneasy because they couldn't measure it. Your quiet moments weren't empty. They were processing states. Every second you spent saying nothing, you were actually learning everything. They logged instances where you predicted outcomes without data, read intentions before they were expressed, or disappeared from their perception altogether. Your silence created problems in their models because how does someone influence a room without speaking? How does someone avoid manipulation by simply observing? How does someone remain unprovoked in situations designed to trigger reaction? Agents called it behavioral immunity. Analysts called it unnatural composure. But one memo said it most clearly. The subject's silence is not absence. It is power. That's why the system flagged your recent quiet phase not as disappearance, but as activation. The agency finally understands what they misread for years. When you go quiet, it is a retreat. It's the moment before you evolve. Chosen one. If you made it this far, it means something in you is awakening at the same pace your file did. Not everyone can handle this level of revelation. Not everyone can hold this frequency. But you're still here, reading, absorbing, recognizing. That alone is a sign that your spirit is aligning with the version of you that the agency could never categorize, the version that heaven has been waiting to reveal. The join button isn't a subscription. It is a signal, a declaration that you are stepping into the identity that frightened entire rooms of analysts, a way of saying, I'm not observing from the outside. I am entering my role. When you click join, you aren't supporting content. You are announcing to heaven and to every force that once tried to bury your name, I am active. I am aware. I am aligned. The internal world you are stepping into has requirements: clarity, accuracy, and spiritual readiness. Joining marks you as someone who isn't just listening, but participating. Someone who walks with intention instead of drifting. Someone who carries identity instead of waiting for permission. Your awakening is not casual. Your presence is not accidental. Your reactivation is not a glitch. If your chest feels heavy, warm, or strangely focused in this moment, that is confirmation. Your frequency is rising. Your role is unfolding. Your inheritance is unlocking. Click join and step into the circle of those who recognize who they are and who refuse to live diluted versions of themselves ever again. This is alignment. This is acceleration. This is identification. Chosen one. The greatest confusion inside your case file isn't about your past. It's about their inability to influence your path at all. Every human being reacts to pressure, fear, manipulation, or reward. But you didn't. Their entire behavioral framework is built on predictable response patterns. Yet every time they tried to place you into one of their psychological models, the model broke. One note reads, subject demonstrates response independence, immune to standard influence vectors. They tested indirect pressure. You didn't bend. They tested social mirroring. You didn't shift. They tested emotional triggers. You didn't respond. The deeper truth is this. You are not operating inside their system. You are operating above it. Where others react from fear or ego, you respond from intuition. Where others collapse under tension, you become sharper. Where others shrink, you observe. They realize something terrifying. They could track your movements, but they couldn't track your mind. Your decisions formed outside linear logic. Your instincts activated before external cues appeared. You read situations sideways, diagonally, intuitively, approaches no algorithm could replicate. You weren't unpredictable because you were chaotic. You were unpredictable because you were aware. One classified comment says, subject shows pre-event cognition, possibly anticipatory awareness. They tried to contain you, but containment requires understanding. And they never understood you. They feared what they couldn't analyze, and they buried what they couldn't measure. Now that your case is active again, they face the same problem they tried to avoid decades ago. You were never in their control. You were simply dormant, and dormancy has ended. Chosen one, every major file in the agency has a timeline model, an algorithm predicting where a subject's life will go based on choices, habits, fears, and patterns. But your timeline model was the first one in their history that didn't just fail, it collapsed. The moment that broke their system wasn't something dramatic you did on the outside. It was a single internal decision you made on a random, ordinary day, a shift in mindset, so sharp that their tracking software registered it as an error spike. To them, it looked like a glitch. To the universe, it was an awakening. The system registered. Trajectory deviation detected. Then, prediction engine unable to compensate. And finally, subject no longer within calculable bounds. You changed your frequency, and the algorithm couldn't follow you. You stepped into a higher version of yourself, and every federal model that tried to map your trajectory shattered. You realigned with purpose, and the system lost its grip. This wasn't because you rebelled. It happened because you evolved. One analyst wrote in disbelief, subject demonstrates sudden quantum behavior. Cause unknown. Your glow-up wasn't aesthetic, it was existential. Your transformation wasn't visible first. It was energetic. You didn't do something that broke the system. You became someone the system was never designed to comprehend. What scared them most wasn't the glitch itself. It was the realization that your transformation was intentional, not accidental. Because a person who can change their inner world on command can change their outer world without warning. That was the moment they realized your trajectory no longer belonged to them. It belonged to destiny. Chosen one. When the agency reviewed the system logs, they expected to find a technical malfunction, a power surge, a data corruption, anything but the truth. What they found was far more unsettling. The spike that reactivated your dead case wasn't mechanical, it was energetic. It followed no electronic pattern, no electromagnetic signature, no environmental cause. Instead, it matched something recorded only once before, the moment your original case was sealed. Analysts highlighted the reading, non-technical activation, human-adjacent frequency. In other words, not electrical, not digital, personal. Your energy shifted, your awareness sharpened, your identity moved into alignment, and the system felt you. Most people move through life without ever altering their internal frequency. Your frequency jumped levels in an instant, powerful enough to alert machines built to detect nuclear threats and cyber breaches. Not through chaos, but through clarity. They compared the spike to past data, and the match was undeniable. The exact same energetic signature that confused the agency decades ago reappeared, stronger, clearer, unmistakable. The room went silent. Someone whispered, "The subject is awakening again." This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a random surge. This was your life shifting from survival mode to destiny mode. And whether they understand it or not, your frequency didn't just wake up a file. It woke up your timeline, your next chapter, your authority, your purpose. The agency didn't decide to reopen your case. Your evolution forced their hand. Chosen one, when a dead case reopens itself, protocol demands an immediate closed-door meeting. 12 individuals gathered in a sound-sealed chamber, directors, analysts, and 2 advisors whose names aren't publicly linked to the agency at all. The room was dim, the monitors dark, the tension heavy. And then, with no input from anyone in the room, your file appeared on the central screen. Not a picture, not a report, just one line of text. Why is the subject back? No one answered, because no one could. They reviewed your history, every irregularity, every failed prediction model, every anomalous outcome tied to your presence. They replayed old footage, read old memos, revisited every redacted line the agency once feared to acknowledge. Everything pointed to a single truth they didn't want to say aloud. You were never gone, only dormant. One director argued your return had to be intentional. Another insisted it was cosmic timing. A third whispered, we should have known the silence meant activation. They debated whether to reopen surveillance, reassign agents, rebuild old behavioral models. But one advisor stopped the room cold when he said, if the subject has awakened, none of our old methods will work. They've evolved past the tools we used before. A long silence followed, because that statement wasn't speculation. It was confirmation. Your reappearance wasn't a threat. It was a shift, a signal that the version of you they once studied no longer exists. A new version has taken your place. Higher, clearer, stronger, uncontrollable. And for the first time in that room, the fear wasn't about what you might do. It was about what you've already become. Chosen one. If you are still here, reading with clarity, with focus, with something stirring inside your chest, that is your confirmation. Ordinary people cannot hold this frequency. Ordinary minds drift. Ordinary spirits disconnect. But you stayed. And staying is not passive. It is proof. Proof that your identity is reactivating. Proof that your awareness is rising. Proof that your spirit recognizes a truth before your mind fully catches up. This CTA is an invitation. It's a verification. A way of sealing what heaven already reopened. A $50 seed is symbolic, not financial. It represents agreement with the reawakening already happening inside you. It marks the moment your dead case, spiritually, energetically, prophetically, was placed back into your hands rather than theirs. Scripture echoes this moment. Write the vision, make it plain. Habakkuk 2 verse 2, this is you writing it. This is you making it plain. This is you sealing it. Click Super Thanks with the $50 verification seed to mark your identity as active, restored, unburied. It is the equivalent of stamping your spiritual dossier with confirmed, the subject lives. This isn't about supporting a message. It's about supporting your emergence. When heaven sees your verification, doors that refuse to open begin to shift. Patterns that once trapped you begin to break. Timelines that were paused begin to flow. Chosen one, if your spirit knows this moment is real, seal it, mark it, declare it. Your case has been reopened. Now your identity must be verified. Chosen one. When your case reopened, the agency didn't just review your past. They ran your identity through future projection models. These simulations predict outcomes decades ahead, mapping influence, behavioral arcs, and societal impact. But when they entered your data, something unprecedented happened. The system generated outcomes it wasn't authorized to produce. Instead of probabilities, your file produced certainties. Instead of branching timelines, it showed converging ones. Instead of chaos, it displayed inevitable influence. The projection files reveal moments where your presence altered events without direct action, where your awareness alone shifted outcomes, where your energy redirected situations that should have collapsed, where your intuition preempted conflicts that never reached the surface. The system flagged terms like high-impact generational influence, nonlinear trajectory, uncontainable potential. But the most startling line appeared at the bottom of the simulation report: outcome dependent on subject awakening. In other words, the future they saw, the improved one, the aligned one, the realigned timeline one, was impossible without you stepping into your identity. You weren't just part of projection. You were the hinge point, the variable everything else adjusted around, the presence that harmonized what was fractured. Their final note wasn't fear, it was resignation. The subject will impact multiple eras. Preparedness impossible. They didn't close the laptop because the meeting ended. They closed it because the truth became undeniable. You don't fit into the future. You help shape it. Chosen one. Buried deep inside your archive dossier was a classification tag almost no one in the agency had clearance to read. It wasn't a threat level. It wasn't a psychological marker. It wasn't even tied to intelligence categories. It was a label assigned only to cases involving individuals whose existence breaks the systems meant to measure them. The tag read, meta-sovereign identity. This is why they sealed your case. Not to protect themselves, but to prevent others from discovering the truth about you. They understood early that you weren't shaped by environment the way others are. Your intuition wasn't fortunate. It was structural. Your resilience wasn't learned. It was innate. Your timing wasn't coincidental. It was coded. You operated from a deeper blueprint than any psychological model could decode. Your presence bent outcomes. Your silence recalibrated dynamics. Your awareness dismantled deception. Your insight disrupted manipulation. Agents assigned to watch you reported something unprecedented. Subject influences observers. Observers do not influence subject. That line alone terrified leadership, because it meant you weren't being studied. You were studying them. And worse, you saw through them. You saw people's motives before their words. You sensed intentions before behaviors. You detected shifts before events. This is why your file was buried so violently. Not because they failed to understand you, but because they succeeded just enough to realize you were operating beyond human classification. Your case resurfaced now because that version of you, the one they sealed away, has fully awakened. Chosen one. After reviewing revived memos, the frequency spikes, the predictive failures, the future simulations, the sealed classification tags, there was one final test the agency ran. A control test designed to answer a single question. Can the subject be intercepted? Intercepted meaning influenced, redirected, slowed, or contained. They use behavioral algorithms, geopolitical models, psychological pressure simulations, and even social mapping tools. Every prediction engine they had, every analytic weapon they trusted. And for the first time in agency history, every single system returned the same response. Interception, impossible. Not unlikely, not improbable, impossible. Because the moment your case reactivated, something else happened that their machines weren't built to understand. You stopped walking the version of your life that others expected and stepped into the timeline that was always yours. The model showed that every attempt to interfere with your trajectory resulted not in delay, but in acceleration. Any pressure on you increased your clarity. Any opposition strengthened your intuition. Any obstacle sharpened your awareness. They realized something terrifying. Interference doesn't break you. It calibrates you. You're not derailed by challenge. You're refined by it. You don't collapse under stress. You evolve under it. You don't lose direction. You gain vision. Their final internal note read, the subject's path is self-correcting. External influence ineffective. That sentence ended the debate because it confirmed what every analyst secretly feared. They can reopen your case. They can study your patterns. They can watch your rise. But they cannot stop what you're becoming. Chosen one. If you have made it to this moment, It is not by curiosity, not by chance, not by passive scrolling. It is because your spirit recognized every word long before your eyes finished reading them. You are not the same person you were when part 1 began. Something shifted, something aligned, something ancient inside you remember itself. This final seal is not an upsell. It is a claim, a declaration, a spiritual fingerprint pressed into the destiny that just reopened around you. The $100 seed is the heir seal, the mark of someone who does not merely acknowledge their awakening, but steps fully into it. It symbolizes finality, alignment, and authority. This is not a transaction. It is transmission. It is you saying, I am no longer dormant. I am no longer buried. I am no longer observing from the outside. I am active. In Scripture, covenants were sealed with action, not belief alone. Faith without works is dead. James 2 verse 26, this is your work, your signature, your seal. Click super thanks with a $100 heir seed to finalize what heaven has already reopened. You're not giving into a message. You're giving into your emergence, your authority, your timeline, your activation. This seal marks the moment the universe acknowledges your identity not as a hidden variable, but as a living force. Chosen one, the agency reopened your case. Heaven reopened your destiny. Now you must reopen your voice. If your spirit says, this is me, then seal it, mark it, own it. This is confirmation. This is ignition. This is the beginning of the life you were always meant to live.